Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as well as the vast majority of crypto and finance. And I just want to start off this video with this tweet here. So I found this absolutely wild to read. So we do see here, exactly, Americans don't have the financial resources to cover a surprise expense of $400 without taking on debt. That is literally what's happening right now within the US. And you know what's crazy about all of this is that it's only going to get worse from here on out. Inflation is absolutely going to wipe out a lot of individuals. And those that are spending beyond their means, they're finished, absolutely finished. And I've talked about this for some time now. But one thing that I think is extremely bullish, and I don't mean to, flip this into the idea of like, oh, this is why crypto is going to be this. No, cryptocurrencies, since the dawn of time, since the beginning of them, has always been for individuals to escape what's happening with fiat currencies. Today, more than ever, the most important thing to drive home about cryptocurrencies is that Bitcoin itself was created out of the ashes that 2008 left. And since then, not only has Bitcoin defied all odds, but so has almost every single major cryptocurrency. With that in mind, I do believe that crypto has become a safe haven for a lot of people. I think that crypto is viewed as an incredible opportunity to escape the traditional world of finance, which we know is in ruins right now. I seen a meme get posted about banks. And this is, although, yeah, it's comical, it really is the truth right now. Banks right now are up in flames. They have basically zero liquidity. They have no, I mean, they're broke. It's the best way to put it. Banks are broke right now. And when you see bankers, anyone want to make a deposit? Like, this is the biggest problem. Like, they are so desperate for people to deposit into the banks because we're seeing withdrawals at all-time highs. I've been talking about this and addressing it for so long now. It's been way over the past couple months, even beforehand, going back to 2022, I talked to you guys about it. Banks are going to collapse. And guess what we've seen? All of 2023 has been banks collapsing left and right. And this is only going to continue from here on out. Over here, we do see deposits at US commercial banks are their lowest in 2 years. And overall lending provided by banks is now at a record. Banks are also now sitting on an estimated $1.84 trillion worth of unrealized losses. All eyes are on commercial real estate. Not a great time for counterparty risk. And yeah, this is crazy. Here we have, while overall credit provided by banks moved up, led by a record level of outstanding loans and leases. This is from Reuters.com. When you see US bank lending edges up in latest weeks, deposits fall. This is from the Fed data themselves. So this is pretty big. And it's a huge trend to watch for because it's only going to continue from here on out. And we do see over here as well at third quarter end, 700. This is absolutely insane. 722 banks reported unrealized losses exceeding 50% of capital. This is a big problem. This is a big problem, and the Federal Reserve revealed this data. I mean, I'm telling you right now, as we look at this banking crisis, I've talked about it many times previously. This is much larger than 2008. And I don't believe that a lot of the general public sees what's coming. Maybe they're ignoring it. Maybe they don't want to see it. But many are about to see a major wake-up call because we are about to see a major flush of this system. This, to me, I believe that the Fed is trying to reset the system. I believe that the Fed is about to reset the entire financial system. I've talked about it many times. I think that this is the plan behind the Fed Now service as well. Over here, breaking, US to ban short selling because of bank crisis, says JP Morgan. The short selling ban of September 18th, 2008 marked the start of the panic collapse of the stock market. This is very on point with what I've talked about, even with the CDS, the credit default swaps. They were hiding that data. That data was significant in seeing and understanding what's coming in 2008. If you guys watched the movie The Big Short, you know about CDS, credit default swaps. It was a big talking point in the movie because it allowed traders to see what's happening and actually get behind it. And now we are seeing short selling being banned. Like, this is insane. This is wild to me. What do you see over here as well? Incoming recession, Fed backed into the corner. I personally love Peter's content. You guys already know me. Go check him out over on YouTube as well as on Twitter. Listen closely to this video.
Has the Fed screwed up so bad there won't be enough money for the next recession? So this bumbling central bank of ours is running out of options, with production and jobs saying we are headed straight for a recession. But given inflation is stuck above 5%, the Fed is a deer in the headlights, afraid to do what it normally does, which is pump out easy money to euthanize the bust. They're still pumping out money, of course, bailing out banks and rich depositors. But the question is, what happens when that recession hits full force, yet inflation is still high? How do they handle the deafening calls for trillions in fresh bailouts and handouts? Will there be enough money? Now, at this point, we have a 20-year pattern where each recession gets trillions in bailouts and stimulus payments. In the 2008 crisis, Bush spent $150 billion to, quote, stimulate consumer spending, while Obama added another $800 billion in stimulus. Naturally, big companies also got their money, at least the ones with expensive lobbyists. GM got $50 billion from taxpayers, plus several billion on an insane program that literally bought old cars, poured concrete into the engines to destroy them in order to stimulate new car sales, called cash for clunkers. Yes, people were that dumb. Then, of course, the mother of 2008's bailouts, the nearly $4 trillion going to the banks and the financial system, featuring $900 billion from Treasury, $1.5 trillion from the Fed in a series of, quote, emergency lending measures, which should sound very familiar at this point, and another $1.75 trillion in Fed asset purchases, called QE. It turns out QE1. There were several more. Now, they recycled that bailout script during COVID. So they had trillions in stimulus checks and the PPP program to buy lockdowns by trying to save at least some of the businesses, and then trillions more in financial support and QE to the financial sector. In total, deficits in those 3 years of COVID came to $7.3 trillion. That was $60,000 per household on your tab. So that at this point is the new normal. Each recession, the bailouts and the handouts get bigger. In fact, you'd have to go back to 2001 when Friends was the top show and Tony Soprano was still setting Paulie Walnut straight to find a recession that didn't feature bailouts and handouts. The problem is that in both 2008 and 2020, inflation was running 2.5%, just a smidge above the Fed's target, close enough for government work. Inflation is currently running at 5.5% and rising, with the Fed apparently panicked that it can't stop it, panicked to the point it's crashing banks on purpose. This means that when next recession, the deafening calls come from lobbyists, activists, and their little congressional playthings, there won't be enough inflation to soak it up. It goes right to prices. Groceries, rent, cars, eggflation on steroids. Now, in theory, that would be a good thing. It would mean they can't do bailouts and stimulus, so the recession would be over faster. Of course, that's not how it works. They can't control themselves. They will instead pray that mainstream media can sugarcoat the inflation on profits or unions or Putin or the global warming fairies. If people believe that, the pressure's off and double-digit inflation is back on the menu. If, miraculously, Americans stop believing the media, then Washington and the Fed are backed into a corner, at which point millions of Americans, perhaps even thousands of bankers, will be shocked to discover that in a real recession, one without the trillion-dollar bubble wrap, they are on their own. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.
And I do believe that a lot of people will be shocked by what's coming because the Fed is inducing all of this. This is why I say I believe that the Fed is going to reset the financial system. However you want to take that, you guys can. We've talked about CBDCs. We've talked about what could possibly happen if they do reset the system. But it seems as though a lot of things are getting out of hand and the Fed definitely is backed into a corner. The biggest question that I have, though, and the biggest problem that I have with a lot of these banks collapsing is the FDIC. I've talked to you guys about these bail-ins. We do see over here, I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? I would be careful about the unintended consequences of starting to blast too much of this out in the general public. This is from November 9th, literally last year. November 9th. Listen closely to this.
It should be there. It should be accessible when people need to know. But I don't think you have much hope of reaching a public that doesn't have a professional need to know.
I completely agree with that. I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? Like, my insurance company doesn't tell me what they're doing with my assets. They just assume they're going to pay my claim. Right? I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do. That we want them to have full faith and confidence in the banking system. They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in. They're going to get their money out. So there's a select crowd of people that are in the institutional side. And if they want to understand this, they're going to find a way to understand this. There's a bunch of law firms represented in this room. There's a bunch of people that'll charge them by the hour a lot of money to explain this all to them. And it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And they all have huge staffs. But I would be careful about the unintended consequences of starting to blast too much of this out in the general public.
And again, this is the biggest problem right now within the US is that we are all being lied to. The retail sector, they just want to throw you into the wind. They don't care what happens. I mean, they literally do not care. They know that a major collapse is coming. They know that the banks are in trouble. And the FDIC also knows that they don't have the deposits or they don't have the reserves to, back all these deposits. I mean, they have like sub $200 billion in reserves for $19 trillion worth of deposits. And banks are up in flames right now. Banks are literally collapsing. They are broke. They have no liquidity. This is a big deal. But again, you won't see anyone telling you, hey, get your money out of the banks. You won't be hearing that on mainstream media until it's too late. You won't have the FDIC telling you, hey, banks are in trouble. Because again, they don't have the money to back those deposits. This is also why the banking sector is a big scam. This is also why I say crypto is thriving because of this. People are flocking to crypto. You honestly think that the Pepe and the meme coin season, all that kind of stuff, is just because people are FOMOing into just random stuff? Although yes, that's part of it. You also have to remember that retail is back. Retail has been back since we started to see the collapse of the banks back in March. And even previous to that, right? The run up in January started to put a little bit of a, attention span onto crypto. But the bank collapse allowed people to, flock from their banks over to crypto because they've seen this as a safe haven for their crypto. What do you see over here? I don't have a good answer to why a growing number of countries are moving away from the use of the US dollar. I have the answer because the US government is bankrupt and destroyed the US dollar with endless money printing to fund endless stupid wars. Listen closely to this video.
Japan holds $1.2 trillion, the largest U.S. debt, and a growing number of countries seem to be moving away from the use of the dollar. Is there an understanding of a concern for that? The world reserve currency is really a big part of why the U.S. is able to exert its leadership. Is there understanding of the fact that countries are beginning to turn away from the use of the dollar and some way to resolve that?
Well, I'd have to let Japan speak to their economic policy. The
number of countries that are beginning to denominate in dollars away from the U.S. dollar.
I'm going to have to take your question, sir. I don't have a good answer for you today.
It's wild, though, that this is what things have come to, where we don't have any answers to the biggest problems. I mean, anyone with a brain could tell you. It's not rocket science. We've weaponized the US dollar for so long. We've massively printed it to the point where the US is bankrupt. I mean, we have $30+ trillion worth of debt. The Treasury wants to add another 18 trillion. This is a big deal. Big problem. And yes, de-dollarization is going to continue to happen. All those dollars are going to flock back to the US, and we are going to have hyperinflation like you've never seen it before. This is why you need to make sure that you are diversifying outside of the US dollar. Because guess what? Fiat currencies, in my opinion, or at least the US dollar, has failed. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, to notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me over on Twitter, as well as join the free Discord down in the description below. It's just up to you all. Have a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are in this beautiful world. It's been Nick. Peace out, guys.